Go to page 40 first and foremost. Some of you already completed that. That's great. You're just following along. That's exactly what I would want to happen. So on our previous lesson, we spent time just reading and sketching our diagrams. Here we had the item that was looked at above ground. It was somewhere in between the two, in this case, two people, right? There's Fred and Agnes. And we put the corresponding angles of elevation. And we knew that they were 520 apart. So this is my starting scenario. Okay? The question is asking the distance between Agnes and the plane. So that's x. So this is what the question is asking for. What's this? The length of that side of the triangle. And this question is also asking for the height. Okay? So what I want you to learn is to be okay with ignoring the height at times. Okay? Working with one of the triangles. One of them makes most sense to work with. Okay? So in this case, you have these two angles. Why don't you find the top angle right here, angle P? So I'll do that on the side here. Angle P is 180 minus 60 minus 40. So that's 80 degrees, okay? So you've got, now you know that this is 80 from end to end. And we want the whole angle from this side to that side, because if you follow those two sides, this angle is really what's across 520. Not one of these small ones here, right? It's not, because if you just take the height and it's just this. And please resist the temptation to split this in half. Some students will take one of these right triangles, split the 520 in half, and then it's like, oh yeah, now I have a side, I have a pair, and they keep going. This is not symmetrical, right? Triangle is asymmetric. Therefore, you can't split the 520 meters. Okay, that's just an aside. If you're tempted to do that, don't go for it. If these two angles have been the same, then you can split the 520 in half, because you know that both of these are same distance apart from the middle, right? The height is essentially the middle, but here it's not, okay? So I've got my pair here. That's what I'm going to have to start with. I have to start with a big triangle. So I'm just going to do a little sketch here where I have the 80, I have the 520, I have this 60 here, and that's going to allow me to solve for x. So I'm not even going to bring the 40 down here because I don't really care about the side across from it. Okay? So there's my pair. So it's sine of 80 over 520. That's sine of 60 degrees over x. You will realize as we move forward, let me give you a little bit of a heads up, that sometimes the item I'm asking you for cannot be solved right from the get-go. Are you listening? It's Monday morning. You can't, sometimes you won't be able to solve right from the get-go. So what you want to do in those circumstances is try to see what can I solve for right now, and then move my way closer to what's actually being asked for. Okay, guys? That's something I need you to learn, because it's just one of those instances that it requires more work. In this case, we can immediately figure out the side that is unknown, right? That they're asking us for. So here we go, 520 times sine of 60, right? Cross multiply, divide by sine of 80. Close this here. And x is equal to, I won't have the calculator up front, but that's 457.28 meters. Okay. There you have it. So now we solve that side, right? Distance between Agnes and the what is it, a plane? Yeah. So there we go. And now we can solve for the height. I will do that right beside here, even though you can use the space underneath, no problem. The height, if you see the shortcut, we've got the slant, right? And we've got the angle that's touching that slant. So we can actually just use slant times sine of the angle adjacent to it. Just watch out. I'm using letter A. This could have been any letter, by the way. This is specific to this triangle. I will always have an A in my formula, but it means it stands for the angle adjacent to that slant. Okay? So then we have 457.28 times sine of 40. And that gives you 293.93 meters. This is the height. So we've solved for A here. This is all A, right? This is all B, finding the height. If you find the shortcut confusing, just cut out this triangle. Now that you have this side, you have your pair, and then use sine of 40 to solve for H. Okay. Yeah. Which one? This 50? This is 40. This one? That's 80. You cannot split it in half because it goes back to these two being different. So if you wanna know what these are individually, okay, you go 180 minus 90 minus 60. So this would be 30. Then you go 180 minus 90 minus 40. This would be 50. Technically, this is 50. That's 30. Sine of 40 because this is the angle that's across the height. If you use the 50, you'd be finding this stretch right here. Because it's always you're solving for the side opposite to the angle, okay? And if you need me to clarify, I gladly clarify later. Okay? So maybe I should talk about that. If the question asks, what's the horizontal distance? Horizontal distance from the plane to Agnes, we're talking about this distance here, right? So we almost want to project the plane onto the ground and then figure out the distance here, in which case we would have to use the 50 to solve for it. So again, yes, you can split this into right triangles. Just be careful that you're doing it correctly. Let's keep going. Page 41. This is the last one I'm doing for now, and then I'll let you try some on your own. So here we have a police helicopter 400 meters above ground on a highway, right? So we've got two angles of depression. The 62 is the angle of depression looking at the collision. So you got to make sure 62 is here. It doesn't matter if you make the collision be here and the ambulance there. It doesn't matter as long as you keep the numbers in the right place. We know that the 62 angle of depression is towards the collision. And then we know that the 27 degree is always from the horizontal, looking towards the ambulance. And we know that the height here is 400 meters. How far is the ambulance from the collision? Okay, so how do we start something like this? I will make a note on the side here. Since height is given, is provided, we must start with a right triangle. Like you don't really have a choice if the height is provided. If that's what the only side that they give you, you have to start with it. Okay. All right, so let's flood this with angles. Let's flood the triangle with a bunch of angles that we know. This is 27, this is 27. Okay, alternate interior. This is 62, this is 62. Okay. We can technically find these angles here and here. Right? We can find these two. If this is 62, then this is 28. If this is 27, 3 gets me to 30, right? So I want 63. 63 degrees there. Okay, so we flooded everything with angles. We know that there's a 90 here as well, by the way, because it's a straight angle. So now you have a lot of information to go with. How far is the ambulance from the collision, right? We want this distance here. Let's call this x, right? So from end all the way to end, this is x. It's ultimately what we want to solve for. That's side x. But I can't do it in one shot. What can I do? I've got this side and that angle. I've got that pair. Okay? And I've got the 63, which is looking at the ground. But remember, the 63 is just from here all the way to there, right? Mr. Derson, couldn't I use the whole angle here? Could I use this whole thing, right? Add them both up and then somehow find x in one shot? That is a good strategy, but the problem is you don't have a pair, a known pair inside the big triangle, do you? Because the 400 is paired up with this angle, which is part of this right triangle. Or if you said the 62 is across the 400, it still limits you to this right triangle. So you can't mix up whole triangle with a right triangle. You can't mix that up. Okay, so let's take whichever one you want. I'm gonna call this one 1, and this is triangle 2. I will break this down into 2 smaller pieces. I will call this A, and I will call this B. Maybe your teachers in the past had like some letters, Y, Z, whatever, doesn't matter. Just break it down. So I will start with this one. Let's quickly make a diagram. It just helps organize your thoughts. This is 28, this is 62, and this is A. Okay, so let's solve for that one. Okay, I've got my pair, so I'm going to do the work here. Sine of 62 over 400, and sine of 28 over A. Let's solve for A. 400 times sine of 28 divided by sine of 62. Okay, so it's 400 times sine of 28 divided by sine of 62. 212, 6837. Okay. And here's another, this is not my final answer, so I'm going to round to 4 decimals because I'm going to add that up to a different, right? So this is just that stretch there. If you like highlighters, okay, I'm going to say that this is that bottom part, which is this bottom part on the big triangle. And let's now work with the other side. You know, this is 27, this is 90, 400, 63, and this is B, okay? Again, you've got your pair here. Sine of 27 over 400. Sine of 63 is going to give me side B. Side B is 400 times sine of 63 divided by sine of 27. If you cross multiply and divide, $785,0442. I'm going to give that a color, and let's go with orange. just dropped my marker here. My kids always tell me that I give them the dad stare when they drop something. It's kind of like, are you going to pick it up? Right? I don't think I do that, but apparently that's what they accuse me of that. Side x, I forgot this one. Side x is going to be a plus b, which is 212, 6838 plus 785.0442. That is a total of 99773. And that's actually okay to say equals, because everything is equal to each other. You're not adding anything to it, like you're not multiplying. So this is what you get overall. That's your final answer in this case.
You said it would be easier if we didn't split up the two triangles, like the one triangle and two.
Okay, I was going to go there next. I'm going to go to what I think is easier. I hope you have a little bit of space left. If not, use the bottom. We don't need that much space for this bottom question. Just do the work there and then say an arrow. So this is one way, or I was just checking if you guys paying attention. What I'm going to say here now is this. Instead of, I don't know if it's easier, to be honest. I don't know if it's easier, but it's an alternate method. So this involved us having to solve for both of these, right? The other method will be this, okay? You have your pair here. I'm going to use sine of 90 to solve for this side. Now you have a side that is part of the big triangle. Okay? And so, listen carefully. Once you solve for this one, it's across the 90, correct? But it is also across, let's travel all across, the 62. See that? The 62 and this side are part of the big triangle. So now I can technically use this angle right here, the whole thing, to solve for everything down here in one shot. So I guess it saves you having to add up the two sides. That's the one step that you're saving. Okay? So let's do this. If you don't mind, sketch it real quick. Okay? Or if you're like, no, I like the one method there, I'm not going to do another one. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to give this a different letter, Y. Okay? This is 62 here. What is this up top here? This is 28 plus 63. If you add them up, you get 91. Wait a minute. Yeah, 91, yeah. That's 91 right there. Highlight that, because that's kind of where everything hinges on that. And I'm still going to call this X. That doesn't change. The fact that the bottom is X doesn't change. So I'm going to go sine of 27 over 400 is equal to sine of 90 over Y. For today's purpose, I'm not gonna show you the work, okay? Just because of I want to have enough space. Cross multiply and divide. We know that this is 1, right? So this is really 400 times sine of, I said I wasn't gonna show the work. Anyways, I'll make it work. Sine of 27, I will just do it right beside here. If you do that, you get 400 divided by sine of 27. That's 8810708. 88108, okay? Now you have this side right here, which is across the 62 also. So I'm going to use that as my pair, sine of 62 over 88108. And then I will use sine of 91 over x, and this is going to solve for x, right? So it's 88108 times sine of 91 divided by sine of 62. I hope this works. Otherwise, we're in trouble. There we go. You get the same answer. 99773. Okay. So regardless of how, so just make sure there's a big or, right? You know that this is or, an alternate method. This is another method. So I guess it's easier. And to a certain degree, it saves you from having to add up these two sides. So what's the strategy? You stick with your right triangle first, and then you find one of the slants. Once you find one of the slants, now you open it up to the big triangle. So you've got your pair, and then use that whole angle there to solve for the whole side down there. So this is another method of doing this, okay? So whichever one you like, you go for it. Okay, whichever method you prefer. I will even take it a step further. If you've got 2 out of the 3 sides in a right triangle, you can use Pythagorean theorem, but I'm not, right now, not going to go there, okay? All right, I'm going to stop here for now. I'm going to ask you, or do you want me to do the bottom one? Do the bonus, kind of like a bonus, yeah. This one?
Yeah.
I would like you to at least use, to be honest, I should have rounded to 4 here. Like, you only want to round to 2 decimals at the very end. If you're working along the way, try to use all or at least double of what you do at the end, just to not lose accuracy. If you keep rounding, it's going to affect your final. It's not a big deal now, but if you were to shoot a rocket into space, it makes a big difference. That little bit keeps on, like, right? The further away you travel, the bigger that gap is going to be. Okay. So we're traveling 30 kilometers an hour. The ambulance is traveling at 30 kilometers an hour because it's rush hour traffic, right? It's really slow. How long in minutes will it take for it to get to the crash site? So this is the distance we're traveling. I'm going to take my 30 kilometers. I'm going to go straight to minutes because I know that 1 hour has 60 minutes. So I'm going to write it like this. I know that 1 kilometer has 1,000 meters. So you cancel the kilometers. So you have, if you multiply, this is 30 followed by 3 zeros divided by 60. You're down to meters per minute. Okay. 30,000 divided by 60. That's 500 meters per minute. So now, if I can do 500 meters in a minute, are you talking math? Okay. Then how long will it take me to travel 997.73 meters, sorry. That's based on my previous answer, right? I just bring that in here. X number of minutes. So you cross multiply and divide. 997.73 times 1 divided by 500. I still have that answer on my screen. I'm just going to divide. I get 1.995, right? That keeps going. So you have to round to 2 decimals, right? So that would actually bump this up to 2 minutes exactly. Actually, remember what I told you? This is especially important in grade 12. Because there is something past the second decimal, technically the province would want you to answer like this. 2.00. I would just always do that. Just do 2 decimals no matter what. Even if those are zeros, just put 2 decimals down and you'll be safe. Okay? Tired already. They just started. Anyways, I want you to try these pages. I tried at first just selecting a few, but anywhere from 49 to 55. Make your journey through them. I would say try to stick to scenarios where there is no diagram provided. And the key is already posted, okay? The key is posted. I posted it on Friday.